Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. I'm your host, Rick the Barkeep, bringing you episode 201 here at the tavern, where today we're going to talk about Patoranger and Lupinranger. And let me go ahead and point out first that, yes, I know I reversed the order. That was a quick mistake on my part. But it is Patoranger. That second character in the katakana is To. So, Patoranger. I don't know where this Patoranger or anything like that is coming from. That's an improper translation. It is Pato. That's what it's spelled as. That's how I'm going to be saying that because I am 100% sure that that is how you're supposed to go ahead and say it. If I've learned anything from Japanese, it is that. And hi. And Ohio gozaimasu. And a few other things. But I do know that means toe, and I don't know where these other translations are coming from, so don't expect me to apologize for not calling it Patoranger. It is Patoranger. Moving on. Okay, so it is that time of year now where we are forsaking the final episode arc of the previous Sentai to go ahead and talk about the new Sentai, which hasn't even aired yet. Yes, we have stopped talking about Kyuranger, and in 2 weeks we're going to go ahead and talk about Lupinranger versus Patoranger, but we're going to go ahead and do it now. I mean, I've been guilty of this in the past, obviously, but I have an excuse this year because I haven't seen any of Kyuranger, so I can't talk about its final arc because I haven't seen it. So all I can really talk about is this. It's just one of those odd things that we have where we're so focused on the new series that we completely forget another series is on, and that the most interesting part of that series is really the ending arc. I mean, it's been true of a lot of Sentai shows, where the ending arc is far more interesting than the beginning arc, the middle arc, even the introduction of the Sixth Ranger. I always find the ending arc more interesting, but again, people are always talking about this stuff as opposed to that. So, I digress on that. Again, I'm guilty of it, so stones in a glass house. But I just want to go ahead and address that here. So there isn't too much I want to go ahead and talk about in terms of the aesthetics for Patoranger and Lupinranger, the Zords or the weapons. That's stuff that I don't think you guys really need my opinion on that much. What I really do want to talk about is the premise of the series. But before I do that, I will grant you guys this. Here's the thing about this 40-second Sentai season about these two teams. First of all, I love the Patoranger costumes. Great balance of their colors and white. I like the badges for the helmets. If you actually do look at the individual badges, they are individually shaped. So they're probably going to be reminiscent of Go-Go 5, where each badge actually means something. It's part of a particular division or squadron, whatever they're part of. So I imagine all three of the Pato Rangers are going to be from different divisions, uniting and becoming the Pato Rangers. I think they're great as far as police theme Rangers go. I think they're actually better than SPD. I think it's way better. I love the balance of the color. There is a symmetry to it that I like. It's great. No notes for you. You're good. A plus. Lupinranger, on the other hand, um, yeah, it's very derivative, isn't it? I mean, again, the Pato Ranger helmets, we know those are badges. That's what they're looking through. They may extend a little bit too far up on the helmet. But what exactly is that supposed to be on the Lupin Ranger helmet? Again, it looks like the Time Ranger helmet. It looks like they got three different shaped arrows that they're going down on them. But I know that can't be it because they're not time based. They're not supposed to be arrows. I don't get it. I don't know what that's supposed to be. Somebody please tell me what is that design supposed to be. I haven't seen any comment on it. And the color visor thing, that works. I'm fine with that. I have no issue with the color visor. It's just that the rest of the costume is black in their primary color, with the only color to break it up is the belt buckle, which, oddly enough, is the same color, or the same shape, excuse me, as the Pato Ranger belt buckle. So I'm interested to see where the series mythology goes in explaining that, how a police force and a criminal gang have the same belt buckle despite having two completely different Ranger designs. Also, again, their color is their primary color in black, so it's not broken up. It looks a little unfinished, looks too dark in my mind. So, yeah, I'm just not a fan of these designs for the Lupinranger. But the thing is, I didn't like Zoozer when it first came out, and those costumes have significantly grown on me. I didn't like Tokyuger at all when it came out, and now I really love Tokyuger to where it might be in my top 10 of favorite Sentai costumes. Um, Hopefully Lupin Ranger will change down the line for me, but right now, yeah, I'm not into the design at all. I think Pato Ranger's better, and frankly, I'd rather just have a whole team of Pato Rangers because they look much better than the Lupin Rangers are. And one more thing, it doesn't have anything to do with the capes. They may be a little bit too long. I like that they are colored capes, that they're not black capes at least. But there is just something about the design that I do not enjoy. I can't put my finger on it. I just don't like it. So I'm not gonna give them a failing F, but I'll give them a D for effort, I guess. But I hope they grow on me because they just don't look any good starting off here. Okay, so all that little stuff out of the way, the design choices and whatnot, I'm going to go ahead and kind of get into the meat of what I wanted to discuss with you guys today because this really, really bugged me. And I went back and forth with a bunch of people on Ranger Board on this matter who, frankly, I don't think I articulated it properly, or maybe they're trolling me or whatever. I really don't know. Um, there seems to be resistance to the way I'm thinking about this series and the problems I have with it. It's always amazing how much I'm in the minority. I like to think I'm a big Power Rangers fan, I'm a big Sentai fan, and all that. And yet, every decision that I have happens to be in the minority. Every thought that comes across my mind seems to be a minority. Oh, I thought Operation Overdrive was fine. It's the worst series by a lot of fans. I hate RPM. It's the most beloved series by other Power Ranger fans. I don't get it. I really don't, guys. I'm not trying to be a contrarian. It's just the way I am. I'm just giving my opinions. And what I'm about to share with you now is my frustration with Lupin Ranger and Pato Ranger. And hopefully you can understand where I'm coming from and the issues that I take with it. Okay, so when the series was first announced, we got the title Lupin Ranger versus Pato Ranger. So I'm like, great, the idea that I've had for years has finally come to fruition. We have a good team of Rangers versus a bad team of Rangers. Because that's what I've always wanted to see, guys, is I wanted to see like Zordon and Evil Zordon. They both pick teenagers with attitude, they're going after a particular MacGuffin or take over the world or whatever and stuff, and they have to come in conflict with each other. That you have that Zordon and Lord Zed with the Power Rangers and the Dark Rangers. That after 25 years, that concept is actually coming into play, where you do take teenagers and give them dark powers because they are evil, they are irredeemable, that they are jerks or whatever and stuff. And like I said, with the problem I had with Six Rangers, again, in Zoozer, Zero the World was a good character who was manipulated to be bad through an evil spell, magic, whatever, and then ultimately is good, where I would have preferred that he's a bad guy who wants to see the world burn, agent of chaos, whatever, murder, whatever, and then they go against the Rangers. I want to see good versus evil, and how would evil be with Ranger suits? Well, it turns out that everybody hates that idea, that watching Power Rangers fight Power Rangers is the most boring thing in the world. And yet, it is the premise of one of the top mobile games and the premise of every Super Sentai crossover movie where the teams have to fight at least once throughout the story. But I'm kind of getting off topic here. Here's the problem, folks. I'm going to go ahead and read to you the description of the series based on the article currently up on Wikipedia. And yes, I do know the Wikipedia is suspect at times, but based on the information I got, I believe this is a fairly accurate translation and representation of what we're going to get into the series. So, here we go. And I quote: the Lupin collection has fallen into the hands of Gangler, a crime syndicate from another dimension who act as the enemy for both the Lupin Rangers and the Pato Rangers. However, though they share the same enemy, they are not always on the same page. At times they will team up, and other times set their aims on each other in the name of retrieving the collection. Both teams have important things they are fighting for. Unquote. Do you guys see my problem yet? Do you see how boring and trite and dull this concept has already become based just on that. Let me kind of break it down here for you guys. We are not getting a good team of Rangers versus an evil team of Rangers. No, 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 no. We have a good team of Rangers and a good team of Rangers with hearts of gold, but they just happen to be bad villains or thieves, and an actual evil gang in which they are both fighting over or fighting with. The introduction of this third element into the story has nullified anything I think would be interesting about this series. So no longer is it going to be the justice and rightful cop rangers versus the evil and sinister thief rangers. No, no, no. It is the good cops and the good thieves versus the evil gang. So that's what we're doing here, folks. We are showing that the Lupinrangers are villains with hearts of gold, but rough exteriors that we have to get through. And oh boy, gag me with a spoon. I'm tired of this. I really am. We've seen this so many other times. Why can't the Lupinrangers just be downright cold-hearted killer badasses and all that? They are describing them as these gentleman thief types. Now, for those of you who are not aware what a gentleman thief is, or a ghost thief, or whatever it's called, I'm not particularly familiar with it either. But it's a big thing that's reoccurring in Japanese cinema and Japanese literature. Basically, imagine a rich, bored asshole that wants to commit crimes just for the fun of it. They don't want necessarily the money. They got the money, they got the wealth, but they're just bored with their palatial lifestyle and they want to go commit crimes for the thrill of it. That's basically what the Lupinrangers are. That they're not thieves. They don't need to steal stuff because they're hungry, they're poor, they've been downtrodden by society, they are psychopathic, or they're racist, or anything like that. No. They're doing it just because they're bored. And, even further, they're actually the victims here. Because it was their collection that was stolen by an even worse gang. And so we must sympathize with them. I mean, imagine this. Imagine you got a story about New York City police officers whose goal is to fight against the mafia, but the mafia has their great treasure stolen by the Yakuza. So now is the mafia and the police against the Yakuza, and they must unite. And the cops realize, oh, the mafia isn't that bad. They're just misguided, but they got hearts of gold. And the mafia is like, oh, those cops, they get in our way, but we like them anyway. I mean, do you think Scorsese would make a movie like that? I don't think he has. I really don't. I mean, I don't know. The problem here is that we are taking two teams of Rangers and the concept of them fighting against each other throughout the whole series, and that's not what we're doing. We're entering a third one where it's basically two good teams of Rangers. And I don't see much conflict or interest in that. And this is something, again, I tried to articulate with the members over at Ranger Board, but I obviously didn't get my point through here. See, the Lupinrangers are basically going to be our Robin Hoods for this particular series. That they're probably going to stand up for the downtrodden. They're going to go ahead and stand up for the poor and what. But the problem with like a modern Robin Hood, in this context, is that why was Robin Hood stealing from the rich to feed the poor in the first place? It's because Prince John usurped King Richard's throne, sent him away, and Prince John was unfairly raising taxes, punishing the people, taking their food away, making them even poorer than they were before. So Robin Hood had a just reason of uprising against Prince John. Where the Robin Hood narrative works is if the government or the ruling force is oppressive to the people, the hero has to rise out that they have to break the law in order to go ahead and fight for the greater good. Now, that's obviously similar to a vigilante, but vigilantes really take justice into their own hands. If Robin Hood was actually a vigilante, then he would enforce the law, but in his own way because he doesn't think the law goes far enough. So the Lupinrangers are not vigilantes in this particular case. They're thieves, they're the bad guys, to be sure, but we have no indication that the Patoranger stand for any type of oppressive government, some sort of fascist dictatorship or anything. See, now if that was the premise, if it was the Patorangers are the militant branch of a fascist dictatorial state in Japan, and the Lupinrangers are, thieves or whatever, but they're fighting to feed their families, they're fighting for liberation of their people, that I can get behind. Then I can look at the Lupinranger as being the heroes of the story, and the Patorangers as being the ultimate bad guys. But as it stands now, it is the status quo in Japan where it's a democratic government. The people are free. Not many people are going hungry. There doesn't seem to be any type of injustice going on. So the Patoranger are enforcing status quo, all that is good in the world. And the Lupinrangers are going to oppose them. Why? Exactly. Yes, I know about the treasure, but they're bad guys. I mean, I don't know how to explain it here, guys. They're on the wrong side of the law here to our heroes, but they're going to be treated as being equal to the Patoranger, and I really have a problem with that. Um, with the exception of a couple of things like Shawshank Redemption and any given Tarantino movie, I do have issues with the bad guys being lauded as the heroes. I mean, look at Scarface, for crying out loud, who was like a drug dealer and everything, but everybody idolizes Scarface, even though he's the bad guy. Or even, let's take a more simple approach here. Look at Darth Vader, who, yes, he was a good guy fallen from grace, but I always find it odd that people have their children dressed up in a Darth Vader mask when Darth Vader is a child murderer, which is the same thing Freddy Krueger is, who's a child murderer and in the reboot is a pedophile, and yet people still idolize those characters, even though they're completely wrong, completely evil, and so forth. So I really have problems with those particular narratives where we're supposed to sympathize with the bad guy. Now, sometimes that can work. And again, Shawshank Redemption is a good example of that, how you do feel for the bad guys in that story. But I just don't like narratively. I don't like those particular stories. I don't want to hear about guys who join the mafia and do whatever. I mean, as good as Goodfellas was, I don't particularly like that story. I mean, I want to see stories of where good triumphs over evil. That's the kind of stuff that I want to go ahead and see. And yes, you can have complex villains and you can do this kind of stuff, but I just don't see that happening here in Sentai. I mean, again, it's going to be that heart of gold. They're rough on the outside, but they're still good. And it's kind of like, in a way, Gokaiger, because I didn't really have an issue with Gokaiger back then, but upon reevaluation, it's kind of the same thing, that they're supposed to be pirates. They're supposed to rape, pillage, and plunder. None of which they do in the series because they are watered down pirates. They are not true pirates. They have to be the good guys to us. That's what the Lupinrangers are, is they have to be the good guys. Because our premise involves two teams of rangers, they have to fight one another because cops and robbers, whatever, but we have to introduce a third element to get the audience on their side to realize that they are the good guys as well. And I just find that incredibly boring because you know what would be great? Imagine this. Imagine this. Let's say the pink Patoranger, whatever her official designation is, used to date the blue Lupinranger, that they were boyfriend, girlfriend, and that they broke up with each other. Now they find that they're fighting on opposite sides. She believes in the right of the law, that you need to go ahead and follow the law, whereas the Lupin Blue Ranger is basically like, screw the law, the government can't be trusted, blah blah blah, chemtrails, whatever, maybe he's that type of character, whatever. And what they clash on is ideologies. She's a Patoranger because she believes that the law is just. He is a Lupinranger because he doesn't believe in the government. He believes it needs to be taken down. Somebody needs to stand up to them for whatever reason. That would be an interesting concept. You have two characters come in conflict with each other because of ideologies. Or you look at the Red Rangers. If Pato Red is working for a fascist dictatorial state, he could say, this is Japan for Japanese people, that we need to eliminate all of our enemies. You can't be free because to have a free state, you must be monitored at all times. There always has to be a surveillance state. Big Brother has to be there. That's what he believes. But then the Lupinranger is like, freedom is the right of all sentient beings, Megatron, and he's fighting for taking down surveillance state. He's against a fascist government where one person is in charge. That you have now, maybe Japan has elected a king or an emperor or something like that, or a new type of emperor, whatever. But they need to take that system down. That's a very interesting story. But what's the story here? Oh, the bad guys had their treasure stolen by another bad guy, and now they have to get him back. Consider this, folks. Say what you will about the Hobbit trilogy, the movies. I liked them. I thought they were great. Not as good as Lord of the Rings, but that's kind of to be expected here. In the original story by Tolkien, the whole reason the dwarves were going to Erebor to claim the Lonely Mountain was just to get their gold back. That's all it was. They just wanted their gold. Nothing more, nothing beyond that. But what Peter Jackson smartly did with the story in the trilogy is not only are they going to get their gold back, which is rightfully theirs, but to reclaim their homeland because he feels that they're a lost and scared people, that Erebor is their birthright, and beyond that, tied into Silmarillion and what's going on with the Necromancer, that if the villains can get a hold of the dragon, sway him to their side, or even get a hold of the gold, that they can raise an army greater than anything in Middle Earth, and which have negative consequences. Peter Jackson was able to add a little bit more depth to the story other than they're just there to get their gold back. And as great as the original Hobbit story is, I think that addition made the trilogy much richer, better for it. But what we have here is the same thing. In Lupinranger, like, all they want is their treasure back. That's the whole reason that they're going to be fighting in this particular conflict. There doesn't be any type of ideology, no conflicting methods and motivations, whatever, and stuff like that. We just want our treasure back. We're fighting these guys. You're in our way, so we're going to go ahead and fight you too, whoever stops me. If you're not with me, you're my enemy. An absolutist view there. Now, certainly, can you do things with that? Oh, for sure. No, I'm not saying you can't. It's just that as the story is presented right now, it is not that interesting. I just throw my hands up that they had a great idea. Oh, we got a good team of Rangers, bad team of Rangers, but now we must have somebody who's even worse for both of them to go ahead and fight. Personally, I'm actually getting a little tiresome of fighting the Monster of the Week formula, and I know that's in the DNA of Sentai and Power Rangers, but I always said, and I may have said this in a previous video at some point, wouldn't it be great if in a Power Rangers series, like Super Mega Force, which was supposed to be an anniversary series, what if instead of having, typical foot soldiers and all that, what if the soldiers were the Psycho Rangers? Because you guys remember they were on the data cards, and usually you can copy data. What if somebody copy pasted the Psycho Rangers and they were the foot soldiers to fight the Power Rangers every week? So instead of having grunts, that you see, Tangas, Putties, Cogs, wherever, you had someone who was equally as powerful as the Rangers that you can go ahead and fight against. That would be something. Now, let's say we take that concept where you have somebody equal strength and power as the Power Rangers, suits, weapons, their own Zords, but they're evil. I mean, one of the biggest problems with the Psycho Rangers, in retrospect, is they didn't have Zords. Yes, they had monsters, monster forms and all that, but man, why can't we actually get that evil Ranger team versus the evil Megazord? And I don't mean what they did in SPD, because that was stupid, okay? That wasn't a real Megazord. I don't count it as such. But if they actually had, the good Megazord and the bad Megazord, and they have to go ahead and fight each other, and maybe what you do in Wild Force. Remember how you had Zanaku, which was a similar concept, where he actually stole their Zords and the Zords worked for them. Maybe there's a similar concept with auxiliary Zords here. We're not going to go ahead and get that, at least not in the particular shape that I look at. I know I've been ranting for a little bit right here, but the problems I see with Lupinranger and Patoranger is that they're playing it safe. That's what they're doing. The safe bet is to have two teams who could ultimately be good, they're marketable to children and all that, and have this bad guys. The bad guys must look evil. They must look like monsters. Instead of having two teams of Rangers fight against each other with, again, different conflicts, they're playing it safe. They don't want to take that risk, folks. That's what annoys me, is they don't want to try anything else. Somebody once asked me, and so you think fighting Zords is going to be interesting? When was the last time that they didn't have Megazords and they didn't fight with robots against giant monsters? I'm like, Go Ranger, Jacka, they didn't have robots. They just had the sky ships and stuff. And they're like, well, times have changed. It's 40 years later, and that's my point exactly. Sentai started out in the first 2 years. They had the jets, they didn't have giant robots, and they got to Battle Fever J, and then that became a staple. They didn't have transforming robots so a couple of years after that. I think it's time that they change the formula up, that they do something different with the series. Instead of having Rangers fight monsters, have Rangers fight Rangers, Megazords versus Megazords. That would be new, that would be interesting, but they're not going to go ahead and do that. They're going to go ahead and play it safe, and we're not going to get anything remotely cool out of that. That's the problem that I have. And I hope I've been able to articulate it to you guys. If I didn't, I'll probably answer it in the comments, do a little bit better. Maybe I'll have a rebuttal video sometime down the line. But yeah, it's just really annoying to me that they're not taking chances, they're not trying something new. And for those of you who say, you can't have a season where they fight against Rangers, that would be boring in every episode. I argue that fighting against monsters in every episode has become boring. We've become stale. We've become used to it. We come to expect it. Give us something new. Give us something that we're not going to go ahead and expect. And I don't mean like more Rangers and more Zords. Give us more conflict. Give us more character. I don't know, guys. It's just really bothering me that we're doing that and we're not making it a true good guy versus bad guy. It's good guy and good guy versus bad guy. That's what I'm saying. That's my ultimate problem with it. But what do you think? What do you think of Patoranger? What do you think of Lupinranger? Do you think the concept is sound, or do you think that they need to start taking chances and doing different things? I'll, of course, watch the first episode. We'll see where it goes from there, and hopefully they can make something good out of this to make it one of the good Sentai series. If not, then I can't wait for the 33rd Sentai to just get this one over with. Alright then, so I want to thank you guys for listening. Have a good evening, and the tavern is now closed.